All right, it's time for round two of the NBA playoffs for the New York Knicks, who will be facing an old rival. That would be the Indiana Pacers. And there's a lot of history between these two franchises in the postseason. So let's talk about the series, and we're going to do it with the Knicks beat writer for the New York Post, the great Stephen Bondy, who joins me now. Steph, I know you're fully in playoff mode. How you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm great. I'm gearing up. I'm ready for it, man. It's the second year in a row they're in the conference finals. They're trying to take the next step and make the conference finals for the first time in a very long time. So here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Chance to go to the conference finals on the line. Now they're playing in the conference semis. And okay, Steph, there's some great storylines in this series, as well as a ton of history, as I mentioned, between the two teams. It'll be the 8th time these teams have met in the playoffs since 1993, but it's been over a decade since these teams squared off in the postseason. So do you see the prior history having any factor in this series for the players or the fans?
I don't think the players. I think for the fans, if you're 40 years or older, you remember those series. I think that was one of the, if not the number one rivalry in the Eastern Conference, certainly towards the late 90s. Because in the early 90s, it was the Bulls and the Knicks. But then later you got to the Reggie Miller stuff, the Duncan Dutchman, Rick Smits. I mean, there was a lot of crazy series that the Knicks and Pacers had back then. And I think if you're 40 years or older, you remember those, and this kind of brings those back up. And certainly Spike Lee is going to care. He's going to be front row, and, there's going to be a lot of discussion about him and Reggie Miller and everything that happened back then. So, yeah, the players usually don't get into that kind of stuff because we heard a lot of the same things last year when they played the Miami Heat. And it was, taking rivalries back 20-plus years. I don't think the players really care that much, but the fans will certainly get into it.
Yeah, this one should be a fun one for fans on both sides. We'll see how that all plays out. And in this matchup, we'll see two of the best point guards in the game. They're going to go head-to-head in this series, Tyrese Halliburton and Jalen Brunson. Which guard do you think has the edge in this matchup, and why?
Well, first of all, I don't know if I could put one or the other has the edge because they're not really going to guard each other. But I think if you look at the production they're on, the run that they're on, and the production that they're doing right now in the playoffs, it's certainly got to be Jalen Brunson. I think Jalen Brunson has been one of the top 3 players in the playoffs so far. Maybe even number 1. You can make an argument. He's been crazy now, and that's even counting that in games 1 and 2 against Philly, he didn't have good games. But he carried the Knicks down the stretch. He has the ball in his hands all the time. I think Tyrese Halliburton is a much different type of player. He looks to facilitate, and a lot of his effectiveness is reliant on how other people are playing, whether that's Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, wherever else you want to throw in there for the Pacers. But in terms of how he leads the team and how he's going to have to carry his team, I got to give the edge to Jalen Brunson.
All right, giving Brunson the edge there, and the production from Brunson has been tremendous thus far this postseason. And, Steph, I'm sure during this series we're going to hear the word pace brought up a great deal. These teams are at opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to pace. So will the Pacers control the pace in the series, or will it be the Knickerbockers?
Well, it's the biggest question in the series, and I actually just got off the phone with Stan Van Gundy. We were having a discussion about this, and it's very interesting because, like you said, the Pacers want to run. They want to get out. And the Knicks leave themselves susceptible to transition because they're crashing the offensive boards like crazy. That's their identity. That's their game plan. And if they get those rebounds, they're in good shape. If they don't get those rebounds and Indiana picks up those defensive boards and kicks it immediately in transition, the Knicks are in trouble. And even if the Knicks make, right, the Pacers are going to take the ball out of the basket and go run. That's their identity. That's what they want to do. And the Knicks, a lot of times when teams are worried about transition defense, they're not even going for the offensive boards. The Knicks are going to crash the offensive glass. So I think a lot of that is a roundabout way of saying rebounding is just as important in determining who's going to win the pace factor. And I think the Pacers want absolutely nothing to do with the half-court defense of the Knicks. The Knicks are a much better half-court team. And if you look historically in the playoffs, the pace slows. So I think the Knicks are better equipped to play playoff basketball. And we saw in Series 1, yes, the Pacers beat the Milwaukee Bucks, but their pace was way down. It's just the element of playoff basketball. So I think the pace is going to be down, but I think the Knicks need to get those rebounds and play to that identity that they did in against Philadelphia, because the Pacers are not a good rebounding team.
No, not a good rebounding team, giving up the most offensive rebounds in the league, and the Knicks led the league in offensive rebounds this season. Now, Knicks fans, they're going to see a familiar face in this series, Steph, as Obi Toppin will be on the other side in a Pacers uniform. We know the forward was traded to the Pacers before the start of last season, and he just had his best playoff game of his career. Should fans fear a Toppin revenge series here? Is that something they should be worried about?
I wouldn't fear it. I wouldn't it wouldn't keep me up at night. But, he can get hot. We saw when he was at the Garden, those electric moments when he gets his teammates going, he gets the crowd going with those dunks in transition. And, he's incorporated a decent 3-point shot to his game. I wouldn't, if I'm going down my scouting report, Obi Toppin is number 6, maybe, that I'm worried about. But he can catch fire. He can do electric things on a basketball court. And it wasn't a good situation in New York. The breakup was kind of ugly. I mean, he had that argument with Tom Thibodeau during the Heat series in the locker room that got pretty nasty. And then they traded him for basically nothing. They got 2 future second round picks that I might not even convey or something like that. I don't even remember what years they are for. So, yeah, it wasn't a good ending. And maybe he has some revenge on his mind. He might not say it publicly, but that's, every player is wired that way. But he's not the type of player that I'm, like I said, losing sleep over. If you're the Knicks, you're worried about Tyrese Halliburton, number 1, Pascal Siakam, number 2.
Yep, those players would be a lot higher on the worry list than Obi Toppin will be. Last thing for me, Steph, the Knicks, we know this, they're favored in this series. They've got the home court advantage. So in your eyes, what are the keys to the Knicks winning this series and advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in a long time?
I think we went over it kind of, the rebounding. And also, here's a big one, the pick and pop defense, because when you incorporate Miles Turner in the mix, he's a good three-point shooter, a really good three-point shooter. And if you're going to put Mitchell Robinson on him or Isaiah Hartenstein, and Tom Thibodeau prefers a drop coverage, those guys are going to be open in the pick and pop game. So how do the Knicks combat that? I mean, do they put Mitchell Robinson when he's on the court on somebody else? Do they figure out do they play Precious Achiuwa because he's better on the perimeter? I think that's going to be a big issue that the Knicks need to solve defensively. And I'm pretty sure Tom Thibodeau has spent every waking moment of the last couple of days thinking about that.
Yeah, I'm sure he has. That's probably what he's losing sleep over. He's probably losing sleep over how he should cover that. Not Obi Toppin. He's doing that. Steph, before I get you out of here, because when we did the live stream before the Sixers series, I asked you for your prediction, and you gave me one for that series. What's your prediction for this Knicks-Pacers series? What's your prediction here?
By the way, I think I said Knicks in 6.
You did?
And so I'm on the money. I was on the money.
You know what? I remember you said Knicks in 5 if Embiid was 80% health or better, but you felt likely Knicks in 6. I think that was your likely pick that you had said.
That was my, all right.
Yeah.
All right. I wrote Knicks in 6, so it's in print.
Okay,
and I was
in
right.
print.
So
That's what
I'm on fire right now.
There you go.
And for my next prediction, which is also be in the post, Knicks in 5. They're gonna win the first 2 games at home. They're gonna take 1 in Indy, and then they're gonna wrap it up in Game 5 at the Garden.
All right, there you go, people. Stephen Bondy, he's been hot. He was right in round 1. He feels like he's going to be right again in round 2, because why would you not feel that way? But we'll see how the prediction plays out. Again, that's my guy, Stephen Bondy, Knicks beat writer for the New York Post. I'll have you covered throughout the series. Steph, appreciate the time, and I will see you at Game 1.
All right, man. I'll see you.